Good morning. Let's call to order the ninth meeting of the House Education Committee, the 2024 regular session. I'm going to ask all members and guests to please silence your cell phone. I'm going to advise guests that there are sign-up sheets in the back. There are additional testimony on pieces of legislation or at the chair's discretion based on time restraints and information already presented. And always a reminder that no signs are permitted in the committee room. Do any of our members have any introductions they'd like to make at this time? Seeing none, Mariah, please call the roll.
Representative Ballman.
Present.
Representative Bojanowski. Representative Brown. Representative Emily Callaway.
Present.
Representative Josh Callaway.
Present.
Representative Decker.
Present.
Representative Doan.
Present.
Representative Jackson.
Present.
Representative Lewis.
Present.
Representative Massaroni.
Present.
Representative McCool. Representative Rayburn.
Here.
Representative Rawlings. Representative Raymond. Representative Riley.
Here.
Representative Timoney.
Here.
Representative Wilner.
Here.
Vice Chair Baker. Vice Chair Truitt. Chair Tipton.
Present. We do have a quorum to conduct business. We're going to defer from our agenda this morning. The first item on the agenda will be Senate Bill 191, an act relating to post-secondary education funding and declaring an emergency. Senator David Givens. Senator Givens, if you and your guests will please come forward and identify yourself for the record. It would be greatly appreciated. And after you identify yourself for the record, I will swear you in.
Mr. Chairman, I am State Senator David Givens, 9th Senate District here in Kentucky.
Chair Tipton, I'm William Payne, Vice President for Finance and Administration at the Council on Post-Secondary Education.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm testimony you're about to give the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Well, please proceed with your presentation, Senator.
Chairman Tipton and members of the House Committee, thank you for the opportunity to present Senate Bill 191 for your consideration. And I want to start by not just saying thanks for considering this bill. I want to thank you for the journey that you've been on with us and the students in post-secondary education and the Council on Post-Secondary Education for what will soon be 10 years. And when I say we're on a journey, one of the biggest challenges we face as policymakers is what I call continuity of policy. We transition in and out, 2 years, 4 years, administrations come and go. We have been singularly focused for almost 10 years now on a guiding North Star that CPE and the universities have all been pulling toward. It's called 60 by 30. And I'm going to take just a moment and share that story with you because it is so impactful. The goal being, if we can have 60% of Kentucky's citizens have a post-secondary credential that matters by the year 2030, we're going to impact economic mobility, we're going to impact revenues for the state, we're going to impact incarceration rates, we're going to impact overall health and community vitality. 60 by 30 is that North Star that we've been working toward for the last 10 years. Chairman Tipton, thank you for your leadership in this process. Now, what has turned the dial so positively for us has been performance-based funding. Years ago, we had a shares model based on whatever percentage of money a university got in the budget, that's what they got in the next budget, regardless of performance. In 2015, we started this process to say degrees matter and we're going to reward our universities based on degree attainment. Folks like Aaron Thompson matter, and we're going to reward them when they show up on time for committee meetings. But Aaron and Bill have been instrumental in helping guide this policy toward this North Star, and the successes we're seeing are off the charts. We started out around 48% in 2015 of post-secondary degree attainment. Bill was just sharing with me, and he's got copies. If anyone here wants one, I'd encourage you to take one. We started at 48 in 2015. Today we're at 55%. Again, the goal being 60 by 30, post-secondary degree attainment, a credential that matters to impact families. What you're seeing today, very briefly, is the latest iteration. And when I say the latest iteration, Chair Tipton, myself, the CPE leadership you see here at the table beside me, along with our university presidents, gather every 3 years to say what adjustments do we need to make. We met in 2015 and launched this effort. We met in 2018. We met in 2021. Now we're here in 2024 with that 3-year update. I don't even call it a course adjustment. I don't even call it a course correction. I'm suggesting what we're doing in this legislation is turning the dials very, very slightly to change some of those ways that we weight outcomes. The largest being, in this case, non-traditional students. We haven't been successfully awarding incentives to our post-secondary degree institutions around those non-traditional students. So this is us turning that dial just a little. I'm going to pause there. I'd like to ask President Thompson to share a few words and reflect on this as well.
President Thompson, could you identify yourself for the record, then I'll administer the oath.
Absolutely. Aaron Thompson, President of the Kentucky Council on Post-Secondary Education.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Morning, everyone. Sorry a few minutes late. I got in a little bit of a traffic jam, but of course, 8 o'clock meetings make that happen sometimes. Let me just say a couple of things I think is really important. First of all, I would just say that when you talk about accountability systems, when we put this in place, post-secondary education created an accountability system. We're rewarding those items that are good for the state. The way we've designed this particular piece of the bill this time, as well as the way we designed it in the beginning, was really looking at what will our state need by 2030. To put it in context, you can look at any data out there that tells you that in Kentucky it's going to take 62% by 2030. So 60 by 30 just didn't happen out of the air, by the way. 62% by 2030 of the citizens of the state needing a credential, post-secondary credential that matters in order to participate actively into our labor force. It's predicted that 90% will have to have a post-secondary credential to get skilled up or moved up. So this is directly correlated with the needs of the state. The other items that I will say, and of course couldn't include everything, but the items that we've included are those items that directly affect that outcome. For an example, when we look at our adult learners, low-income populations, a variety of those, it takes more money to put in place in order to get those students where they need to go. In post-secondary education, our responsibility is what do we do with them when we get them? Yes, we'd like to create a better pipeline, as Representative Tipton will tell you, like what we're doing with our education continuum, to get more students engaged in post-secondary from high school. We're going to have to do a better job somehow of that in partnership, but our job is what do we do with them when we get them? And so this is a continuous improvement model. In other words, we look at and measure how far we've come in order to get to that 60 by 30. As Senator Givens has told you, we're at 55%, and you've probably seen the latest data. Kentucky's at the top in these areas, almost at the top in all these areas of improvement. But the point that I'm trying to make is that when we measure this, we saw that we're not moving low income as fast as we need to. So we changed that from a 3% to a 8% in order to get there, because our campuses are saying, Aaron Thompson, we've got to get more wraparound services to get where we need to go. So the point being is it's working. It's changing behaviors on our campuses. It's focusing exactly on those particular outcomes that are needed for the state, and we're consistently measuring it at the most minute position that we can in order to create that continuous improvement.
Motion on the bill.
We have a motion and a second on Senate Bill 191. Are there any questions? Representative Bojanowski.
Yes, thank you. As I was reading the bill, the language for, in the section, it's on page 4, for striking, it strikes bachelor's degrees awarded per 100 full-time equivalent students. Could you explain why that language is struck?
I'll respond to that question. 6 years ago, when the working group originally came together and constructed the performance funding model, degrees per 100 FTE students was an efficiency measure, an efficiency metric that was added to the funding model. It was used to weight bachelor's degrees produced. Every institution produced a certain number of degrees per 100 FTE. We calculated an average for the sector, which was in the university model, it would be the average for the universities. And then whether you were above or below that average was used to weight your bachelor's degrees. There was an unintended consequence with that metric. It actually penalizes institutions that are growing their enrollment, trying to progress more students, trying to get more students to the finish line. And so it runs counter to the growth-oriented goals of the model. So the working group came together, discussed this, and decided because it was running counter to the other incentives of the model, we needed to recommend that it be removed.
I have a question from Representative Raymond.
Hello, thank you all. So, can you help us all understand sort of the trends of performance-based funding? I know UK consistently earns the most, and then some of our universities, if I'm correct, earn nothing. So how could this help, and will it help some of our universities who have not been really successful in this process become stronger?
I'll respond first, and certainly my two colleagues can reflect on the question as well. I certainly do think that this will help all universities. And I think what we're seeing over time, and this took a period of time because we entered into this policy, like I said, around 2015. We were at a point in time, though, when the economy was not good and we weren't funding post-secondary education hardly at all. And so what happened is all the institutions that came into the mix, those that were actually carrying excess funding, that's not the right term, they were carrying a higher level of funding per full-time equivalent, ended up being normalized back. A lot of the institutions that you're talking about that haven't been earning successful funds from the program were actually arriving at a higher level of funding per full-time student. And so when we start measuring it, that started shifting and normalizing. So I do feel confident there's going to be lots of opportunities for all of our institutions to win under this, and these gentlemen can reflect on the outcomes better than I because they look at the numbers day in and day out. But I think we've got great opportunities for everybody.
We do, and we look at the numbers all the time. As a matter of fact, a couple of points I want to make. When we started this model, we had no new funding. We were switching money to each other, if you will, which is very problematic. A model like this is a growth model, and it works if you get funding to it, right? That's performance funding without funding is pretty tough. But we got funding, and three things that, and Senator Gibbons mentioned one of those, is one of the ways we had to do it to get people on what we call an equilibrium is to get them as close as possible to the same per FTE funding, period. Now, what happens in that, number two? Well, what happens in that, those of smaller institutions, especially during a time where we were losing enrollment, really had a problem getting there because they couldn't get at that equilibrium. Moorhead, KSU, two great examples. Everybody's heard about that. So what we did then, number three, in this model, we said, okay, there really needs to be a small school adjustment here, especially since both of those institutions are serving very high need populations and really takes a lot more money for those wraparound services. And you have to have a base to build off of in a student success model, or you never get to where it's going to go. And in this case, this addition of performance-based funding, we've taken KSU and Moorhead to equilibrium, if you will. So now, based on performance, they still have to perform. Let me be clear. If you don't perform, you don't get. They will have, quote unquote, an equal opportunity to get in this case. And so what you've heard a lot about those that didn't get funding, they had a hold harmless basis that we did the last time around to where they didn't lose funding, but they had really a bank, if you will. So if they made money, had to take away from that bank, they didn't get anything. In this case, it becomes an opportunity for them to gain because now they're at equilibrium. Now, albeit those two were in a forced equilibrium state, whereas the others had reached equilibrium on the FTE model, but this gets us to that point.
I have a question. You mentioned non-traditional students, which are adults 25 to 64 in the legislation, and I know that's a metric that's being added to it. Do we know how many Kentuckians have some college credit but do not have a degree or credential?
We do. We have those numbers. We also have all kinds of different numbers. There's a little over 1 million out there with nothing that needs, that we realize that it may be some have aged out. So we're working with about 600,000 in this population group. Now, many of those will have some college or would have a lower skill up, something, a few hours. And we're working with employers, we're working with those, the basic adult education, working with a lot of folk that are not where they need to be. And 2 quick statements. We can't get to 60 by 30 without getting more high school graduates going to college and more adult learners back into college or into college. That's why this was an important metric for the state.
Okay, I see no more questions, and Senate Bill 191 having been properly motioned, received a second. Mariah, please call the roll.
Representative Baker? Yes. Representative Ballman?
Yes.
Representative Bojanowski?
Yes.
Representative Brown? Representative Emily Callaway?
Yes.
Representative Josh Callaway?
Yes.
Representative Decker? Representative Doan?
Yes, ma'am.
Representative Jackson?
Yes.
Representative Lewis?
Yes.
Representative Massaroni?
Yes.
Representative McCool? Representative Rayburn?
Yes.
Representative Rawlings?
Yes.
Representative Raymond?
Yes.
Representative Riley? Representative Timoney?
Briefly explain my vote.
Proceed.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you all for bringing this today. I'm definitely a yes on this, and this is the type of vision that we need driving our people forward in Kentucky. This is the type of vision that people can buy into and kids can focus on and their families can engage in. So thank you for bringing this forward.
Representative Truitt?
Yes.
Representative Wilner?
Yes.
Chair Tipton?
Chair votes yes. Senate Bill 191 having receiving 18 yes votes, 0 no votes, and 0 pass votes, passes for favorable expression. The same should pass on the House floor. Thank you, Senator Givens, you guessed.
Chairman, thank you, and thanks to each of you for your support of this legislation. Thank you.
All right. Thank you all for being here. Next, I'm going to call on Senate Bill 11. Senator Schickel, if you and your guests will come forward. I'll remind everyone that make sure those mics are turned on. Those green lights should light up. And please pull those microphones close to you so that you can be heard properly. And once you get settled, everybody please identify yourself for the record, and then I will administer the oath.
State Senator John Schickel, District 11.
Kimball Best, Assistant Superintendent for Operations, Boone County School District.
Jordan Turner, Boone County Attorney.
Philip Ridgel, Major, Boone County Sheriff's Office.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
We do.
Well, thank you. Senator Schickel, I believe this is your last rodeo. So it's good to have you here this morning in the House Education Committee. Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and it's an honor to be here before you and your esteemed committee. Thank you for hearing this important piece of legislation. This was heard by you all during the interim. I believe these same witnesses were here during a joint committee. It's also obviously passed the Senate, and I believe it was a unanimous vote in the Senate. But what this is, very simply, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, is we had a new county attorney elected, and she, along with our sheriff's department, discovered what we consider a loophole in the law where there's a delay in the courts notifying the schools when a juvenile is charged with a serious crime. Therefore, the schools being in the dark sometimes for 7-8 days about one of their students that's been charged. That is the what I call the Reader's Digest version of the bill.
Motion on the bill.
We do have a committee sub. Have a motion on the sub. Is there a second on the sub? Did I hear a second on the sub? Okay. Representative Bojanowski, I know you have a question. Please proceed.
Yes, I do. Could you explain the difference between the original?
I'll let the
Would you
chair-
like me to explain that, please?
Yeah.
In the original bill, on page 1, at the top on lines 5 and 6, and again on 16 and 17, there is language that was stricken where it says the judge in the court in which the matter was tried shall direct thee. And in the sub, that language was added back in at the request of the Circuit Court Clerks Association. There is also language on page 4 of the bill, starting in line 12, where it would allow a superintendent may designate an employee of the school district to receive notices and carry out the responsibilities of the superintendent in those situations. And those are the changes in the committee sub from the original bill. Any other questions on the sub? Not all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Committee sub is adopted. Now we have on the floor Senate Bill 11 as amended by the committee sub. I believe I heard a motion. Would somebody like to repeat that? Have a motion and a second on the bill. Representative Bojanowski.
I just wanted to clarify, because I thought I heard someone say when a child had been accused of a certain crime, is this, and then I'm reading in the bill, and I'm not an attorney, adjudicated guilty. So is this information released when the youth is found guilty of the crime or when the youth is accused of the crime?
So, if I may, it would actually provide notice in both of those situations. So, the original statute prior to this legislation provides for notice to be given to the schools at an adjudication, which is at the end of the process. The new legislation allows for notice to be given at the very beginning of the process. The current statute already allows that, but there's a time delay when notice is to be given when a case is initiated. The new legislation simply moves up in time at the beginning of the case when the notice is to be given.
We're glad to have our assistant superintendent and sheriff here. You're welcome to add anything if you like, or we can proceed to the vote.
So on behalf of the school district, one of the key points of this, in support of this bill, is that having all of the appropriate information allows us to make the best decisions in order to keep all students safe, whether that would be the student who is going through the court process or any other students or staff members who might be impacted. So having this information earlier than in previous really allows us to provide the best support for all students in the situation.
From a law enforcement perspective, we support this because we did discover certain loopholes when our SROs are, to a degree, put in a bad situation of their knowledge. However, the law does not provide for them to share an activity or a law enforcement action the night before or the weekend before. So we see this as really a common sense bill that shores up some processes, and it's entirely under the purview of public safety. We don't view this as certainly a partisan bill in any way. This is designed to help the schools operate in a safer manner with victims in mind as well.
Thank you. Seeing no more questions, Mariah, please call the roll.
Representative Baker? Yes. Representative Ballman?
Yes.
Representative Bojanowski?
Yes.
Representative Brown?
Yes.
Representative Emily Callaway?
Yes.
Representative Josh Callaway?
Yes.
Representative Decker? Representative Doan?
Yes, ma'am.
Representative Jackson?
Yes.
Representative Lewis?
Yes.
Representative Massaroni?
Yes.
Representative McCool? Representative Rayburn?
Can I briefly explain my vote?
Please proceed.
I'm a no. I understand the intent of the bill and the need to protect public